So this video is all about overthinking it. It's going to be a stream of consciousness, overthinking, and here we go. The starting point is this plate, a lovely hand-thrown plate from the Quarry Art Centre, and there's a competition which I'm going to enter in a week and a half, which is enter a plate into the art auction. The plate will be auctioned to give money to the quarry, and people get to see your amazing plate creation. And so here comes the thinking. First thing is like, okay, so it's got a way to fix it to the wall. It's a sort of traditional plate hanging thing, and I sort of fixed it with a wire. I'm thinking it can hang or something like that. It's got quite good acoustic qualities, so I'm thinking, alright, let's activate it somehow by striking it. I don't want it to be a big complicated thing, so I've attached this little relay which has got a little mechanical movement in it. I'm going to see if that can actually activate the plate by making it resonate. And also some background thinking to the other thought. I have a bunch of these which are level meters of various kinds that I've picked up over the years, and also these other bigger relays compared to this one for size. The bigger the relay, the more mechanical movement and the more potential for sound. These things are great as well because they have a tiny little lever, and they don't take hardly any energy to make them move, but they can only make really delicate sounds. The other thinking was this, which is ripped out of a computer fan. It will rotate. It's got these wires, it spins very fast, so whatever it does, it's going to be pretty kind of overwhelming. It's a big powerful fan. It also takes 12 volts, which is sort of fairly high voltage. I'm not sure if I want this plate to be plugged into the wall. I'm trying to kind of avoid that, so it's a sort of standalone piece. Maybe that gets recharged or uses batteries. So there's this thing here which is like an enormous shaded pole fan motor which will plug directly into a 240 volt. So this is an enormous thing. It's got lots of power and can do all kinds of really intense mechanical movement, but it's just too big. And the other thinking was this thing here, which is like this is called a stepper motor. It's relatively small, doesn't take an enormous amount of power. It's a little bit complex to use. You need a little controller board, you need a little microcontroller, but it's quite precise. It will turn like a clock to any particular angle, and you can control it precisely. So that's another option. I've also got this thing here which I ripped out. It's from a vacuum cleaner. It's an impeller. It was normally mounted through that hole on a spindle or on the motor shaft. That looks quite nice. Don't know if it will actually do anything useful, but we'll see how we go. And so the further thinking, which has sort of been discounted, but I have this, which is a little LiPo battery. It's quite small. It's 30 mils by 30 mils. It actually stores quite a bit of power, so it would be good for powering the plate if I wanted it to be battery powered. This is connected to this charge controller thing, and this is a little Wi-Fi connected microcontroller called a Wemo. And so I thought for a moment that let's have a Wi-Fi connected plate, and you can connect to it on your phone and make the plate do something with your phone or something. And then I immediately thought, no, I hate that kind of stuff, so I'm not going to do that. So that's that thought out of the way. And so just a little bit of observation. I glued this relay to the back of the plate with hot glue, which is the standard go-to adhesive for me. Of course, because it's unglazed, it's still kind of got the I don't know what you call it. Basically the clay will gradually rub off onto anything that you try to stick to it. I think so. I'll have to use something like super glue if I'm going to try and stick anything to it reliably. But I don't have any super glue, so hot glue will just have to do, and I'll just have to keep reapplying it until I find out whether it works or not. So the further thinking is just like, okay, just get a grip and get away from all of this electronic stuff and just go back to basics, and kind of lets us think about the object without making it too complicated and what it sounds like, because my original idea was based just let's make it sound like something. And so you can investigate this because it's got the plate, if you can look at it in profile, it's a bit thick, you can't really see though, it's thicker into the center, and in the sides it's thinner, resonates more. So let's just sort of think about how we can make some kind of striker. I know that I'm kind of perilously close to the sort of wind chime kind of dangly sort of thing, which I definitely don't want. So that'll be a pitfall that I'm thinking about how to avoid as well. So I was looking around my workbench, and so one of the other thoughts that I had was that let's just try and attach a speaker to the plate in some way. Maybe we can flip it over, mount the speaker on the back, and then have the plate itself become the soundboard, which is coupled to the speaker. It's going to affect the sound that the speaker makes, and maybe if the sound is interesting and not like doesn't sound like a wind chime, maybe it sounds more like a recording, more like some digital sample of some kind, then that reverberating through the plate could create a far more interesting thing. And I found this circuit that I'd made up a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, out of some bits that I got from AliExpress. It's a sort of a waveform generator, an amplifier, and a microcontroller to make it work. So I know we're going way back down the complex electronics route, but I think maybe binding a speaker to it would be an interesting thing. So I'm now reaching the point in thinking where I just need to actually try things more rather than just thinking. But this is the overthinking side of it, just to make sure that the overthinking is not underthought, if that makes any sense. So I'm thinking I've got this little thing here, which is a MP3 player. Has a little card, you just put a file on there and it'll play it, and I think that would be a good idea to try and test the speaker. There's a few little things to fix, some wires, and this thing's just not connected to anything, so I've got to go through my documentation and figure out which pin goes to which wire and blah blah blah. But once I've figured out that, I'll plug it in and see if I can make some sound. So just doing a bit of a sound check with the plate. That wasn't very good. Let's try that again. Yeah, let's try that again. As you can see, all the wires just dangling down. We'll do something about that later. Press the button. So I don't think I'm going to use God Save the Queen, but it's got some potential, so we'll see what we can make of that. And after quite a bit more thinking, I've come up with some ideas. So this is a different kind of speaker. As you can see, it's quite a bit more chunky than the original speaker that I was using. It uses a bit more power, but it also has got a lot more mechanical force, kinetic energy in it, so that means that it's probably going to make the plate move a bit more, vibrate a bit more. And I thought there must be some way that I can use this somehow, because you can see in the end it's got this impeller. The sound is going in here, coming out the sides, that is mounted on the plate or something like that. Then maybe the sound's going to go spinning out to the sides, which could make for some interesting effects. The other thing is, I thought this little battery, I thought in a gallery situation where something's hanging on a wall for 15 hours or however many days it is, you need some battery that's going to last as long as possible. So instead of this little one, which is I think a 250 milliamp hour battery, I'm going to use something a bit bigger, like this chunky one here, which is a 18650, which is like 5000 milliamp hours. So basically it'll last a lot longer, and between charges. So those thoughts in hand, I think the next thing is workflow. So I've got to test some audio with the plate, and I need to do this in such a way as that there's the least amount of fiddling around possible. So what I'm going to do is wire up something so that I can connect the plate with its speaker to the computer, then run a whole bunch of different sounds through the computer just to see which sounds the best, and then once I've got the sound right, then I will put it on the card. And sometimes it's just the simple things which are a bit of a hassle. Like this kind of bit of an old school stereo system which I'm going to use to drive a speaker for testing the plate, and you know, this is my workbench completely covered with all kinds of junk everywhere, and just every available surface is just filled with junk. So you know, sometimes you just have to wonder what the hell is going on. So after faffing around with the computer for about 20 minutes, I remembered how bad computers are at doing things really simply. So in the end, I just got my little Casio and plugged that in, and I'm starting to get some things that sound kind of good for a plate, like this. So I'm kind of happy with that, but I just need to make it a bit less headachy, because sound things are notorious for driving people away. So I've got to like moderate that, maybe make it shorter or more tuneful, not quite sure. I'm also haven't given up the idea of using this thing, and I really want to mount the speakers on top of it. But as you can see, there's this kind of, there's a lip, it rises up, and then that actually sort of presses against the speaker cone, stopping it from moving. So I'm not sure quite whether that's going to work, but I'm not prepared to let it go quite yet. So now I'm thinking I'm switching into more of a production way of thinking. I've got to get audio out of the synth and record it. I've got this digi-audio recorder, and I'm taking it directly from the line out from the synth so that I don't get things like birds chirping and the kids playing in the background. Although that's all interesting and everything, I think a kind of more pure kind of recording is going to work better for the plate. And of course, whenever you get a digital recording, there's always effects, so there's plenty of opportunities to overthink the effects, and I don't know, this box has got like hundreds, so you could spend all night just sort of playing with all the different kinds of effects. So the new thinking is that the sound for the plate should be the sound of a smashing plate, and it just so happens that we have a box of plates that we're wanting to get rid of, so they'll be ideal. And I've rigged up the audio recorder on this little thing, and I'm just going to smash a plate. Probably have to do a couple just to get the level right, because it's going to be loud, and we'll see how we go with that. This is the completed plate, front view, hanging view. Yep. Get some light on it. And I should add that it doesn't actually work. It switches on, but yeah, there's still something wrong with it, so it doesn't make any sound. But I am confident that I can get it to work, and it seems like the plate that sounds like a smashing plate, I think that's going to be it. Overthink? You tell me.